In this video, I'm going to be doing a coolant change on my 2012 Pathfinder. This should be done every 30,000 miles or 2 years. I have doubled that at least. I've got 4 jugs of 50/50 diluted Nissan coolant, and they cost $25 each for a grand total of about $100 Canadian. Here's the overflow reservoir. It has a pressurized reservoir cap, and here's the radiator itself. That is a non-pressurized cap. I'll put the cost for the dealership up here as well. And I did get a new, larger drip pan, and I will put links to all the products in the description. I do check the quality of this coolant, and I've got another video on how you can check the quality of your coolant, which will also be linked in the description. Now, before I drain anything out, what I'm going to do is turn the vehicle on, turn on all of the heaters on max fan and max heat, and I'm going to let the vehicle run for about a minute, minute and a half kind of thing. I'm not trying to get the coolant up to full temperature or anything like that. I'm trying to get the coolant to start flowing through the heater core. And once that's generally done, I could turn the vehicle off. Now, all you got to do to drain out the coolant is remove this one screw on the bottom of the radiator on the far passenger side. Now, there is a plastic thing that kind of is in the way. So a little air dam type thing. If you take that off, you'll probably not make a mess. I do make a big mess doing this. The problem is that it's over about a 1/4 inch too far and the stream hits it. So if you remove it, you won't make a mess. And if you keep it in place like I do, you will make a mess. I think in the future, if I ever do this again, I'll probably just cut out a section of it so that the fluid could actually just flow through. Anyway, all you need is a Phillips head screwdriver. And you should wear some sort of eye protection while you're doing this. You'll see me get out of here really fast because the coolant actually splashes on the camera. So I have to get out of there and clean it up. Anyway, it all drains into the drain pan, makes a bit of a mess, and I do take a sample of it in the small mason jar. So you can see the difference between the old and new coolant. New coolant is obviously nice and blue, and then the old coolant is green. The old coolant was still registering as good all around by all the tests I did. So I'll just throw the new coolant into the radiator, and I've still got the plug out on the bottom, so it's just going to go right through. But obviously if there's any contaminants and that sort of thing in there, just pushing some out will be helpful. So I do go under the vehicle off camera and just put the screw back in the radiator. Then I use 2 jugs of the premixed coolant to fill up the radiator. 2 jugs is more than enough if all you're doing is draining the radiator and filling it back up. If that's all you want to do, then I would just get the 2 jugs, but if you want to do it twice, then obviously you get 4 jugs. The reason I'm doing it with 4 jugs is so I could start the engine, cycle it through, so that any coolant that's remaining in the engine could get mixed in with the coolant in the radiator, and then obviously I'll drain and fill it again. So it's not 100% brand new fluid, but it's going to be very close. And you could drain the engine. There are 2 bolts that you could take out to do additional draining of your coolant system. I have never done that, and I am not going to start today on this. I've just had too many problems with rusted and corroded bolts. Anyway, once the radiator is filled and the overflow reservoir is at about the right level, I just put the 2 caps back on, one for the radiator and obviously one for the overflow reservoir, and then I go and start the vehicle. Now this is where I'm going to let it run for a little bit. Now I would normally just take it for a half-hour drive or something and just bring the vehicle up to temperature, but because I'm using ramps, it's just a bit of a pain to back the vehicle off the ramps and put them back under. But normally I would just go for a drive. So to help mix it up, I do hold the RPMs just a bit above 2,500 for 10 to 15 seconds. I do that a couple times, but really I leave the vehicle running for about 10 minutes or so. Now, if you want, or if you're having any problems with airlocks, they do make additional things. And this is just a coolant refill funnel or a burp funnel. And really all it does is allow you to overfill the coolant reservoir just slightly with your coolant, and then it'll prevent any air from coming back into the system, obviously because the coolant is at such a high level in the vehicle, and it'll just more easily allow air to escape. Now, I don't really need it, and in fact, I don't use this thing at all on this vehicle. It was my Honda Pilot that had issues, so you could put coolant in the funnel, lift that lever, and you can see it's pulling coolant in. And I did get a lot of use out of this on my Honda Pilot, which seemed to have more issues getting the air out of the system. But honestly, this Nissan Pathfinder, I haven't had any issues with it. So as you can see, the engine is at full temperature, and obviously it's blowing super hot air, and it's the summertime, so I'm going to turn that off. And that's pretty much it. I waited inside maybe 20 minutes until the coolant cooled down enough that's not going to burn me, and then I'm going to come back out and drain it again. So redo the draining. I learned from my mistake, and I left the camera out from under the vehicle, and you can see if you just pull down on that air dam, it doesn't actually hit it and you won't make a mess. So that is an option. The other option is I did jam some old rag t-shirt kind of thing in there, and that also worked to hold the air dam down. So there's options for you, and that's not all coolant on the ground. I actually also cleaned the engine bay of the vehicle while I was waiting for the coolant to cool down. So there's the coolant drain plug, just looks like that. You don't need to buy a new one. You could just keep reusing the old one. And obviously, before I put any new coolant in again, I'll have to reinstall that drain plug. Otherwise, it'll obviously just flow out. And like I said, because this job could definitely have some splash to it, you should wear some sort of eye protection. And once again, I'm going to fill the radiator back up. Some of the other options you could do with this, I'm sure someone in the comments at some point is going to say I should just use distilled water to run up the vehicle. That would be a good idea, but you also would need to have pure coolant and not be given 50-50 mix only at Nissan. So obviously if on your first change you just use water, it's going to push your concentration of coolant level way down. And if you only have 50-50 mix, it's going to be hard to bring it back up. So you will need the concentrated coolant if you're going to do that method. But I'm not even sure if they sell that at Nissan. All they had at my Nissan dealership was 50-50 mix. So if you do run it up with pure water, that will throw you off. But that only really applies if you need 50-50 mix. If you live in a warmer climate, it might not be actually an issue. So a couple options to get some of the air out is just give the hoses a bit of a squeeze. You can see that I filled it up completely. I'm just squeezing some of the radiator hoses that come from the radiator, and it's going to push bubbles out. So that is another way to get some of the air out of the system before you even start the vehicle. And you will get quite a bit of air out just by doing that. And as this is my last refill, I'm going to ensure that the overflow reservoir is also at the right level. So like I said, the cap that's on the top of the radiator is not one of the sort of pressurized caps. It's just a plain cap with a rubber gasket on it. The one that's on the overflow reservoir does have that spring on it. So it is the pressurized cap between the two. And like I said, it's a little bit low on the reservoir, but it is above the minimum line, and I'm going to come back and add coolant after I run the vehicle up. So once again, just turn the vehicle on. Obviously the heater fans are on full blast and the heat is on as high as it goes, and I'll just let that sit for a little while. And just like before, I do increase the RPMs above 2500. I hold it there for 10-15 seconds, and then I let it go back to just plain idle. And I do that a couple of times. I go inside, I come back, I check the reservoir, and then I just take it for a drive. After taking it for a drive, I come back sort of the next day and then just check the fluid levels. They are a little bit low, so I'm going to add a little bit of fluid to the radiator and the overflow tank. And that's pretty much it. It is a pretty easy process, although it is a little time consuming with the draining and filling and then checking back on the fluid levels. So you do need to do periodic inspection after you've done your final refill. And like I said, after going for about an hour and a half worth of driving, letting it sit overnight, I do come back and add maybe 300-400 milliliters of fluid and then just top it back up. After that, I checked it after a couple of days and it was completely full, so no issues. Anyway, overall, pretty easy process, although it does take a little bit of time if you're going to do 2 drain and flushes like I did. Anyway, thanks for checking out my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.